In the summer of 234, the strongest army in China refused to fight. Over 200,000 soldiers of Chao Wei, the most powerful state in the divided empire, sat on the north bank of the Wei River and would not move. Their commander, Sima Yi, one of the most cunning generals of his age, had been ordered to do one thing only: do not engage. Across the river, an army less than half their size was waiting. That smaller army did something almost nobody else in Chinese military history had ever done while deep in enemy territory. It planted crops. It built farms. It settled in and started growing its own food beside the local civilians. Its commander had decided that if the war could not be won in a season, he would win it in a decade. His name was Zhuge Liang. In older Western romanizations, Zhuge Liang, Chancellor of the state of Shuhan. And his story teaches one principle that almost everyone in his era refused to believe, and that almost everyone in our era still gets wrong. That principle is this: when you cannot win by force, you can win by mind. But the mind must be patient enough to outlive the body. Welcome to Doctrine of Power. Today we cut through 1,700 years of legend, novel, and opera to look at what Zhuge Liang actually did, what the historical Sanguozhi records, what the novels invented, and the doctrine that turned a man with no army into the strategist that shaped the next 400 years of Chinese statecraft. China, year 181. The Han Dynasty, 400 years old, is dying. Warlords are carving up the empire. Into that collapse, in a county called Yangdu in present-day Shandong, a boy is born to a minor official family. His name, Zhuge Liang. His mother dies when he is 3 years old. His father dies when he is 8 years old. The family is taken in by their uncle, a Han official. When the uncle dies, the boy, now 16, is an orphan with no patron and no path. He takes himself to a quiet valley called Longzhong, 12 miles west of Xiangyang. There he farms. For the next decade, Zhuge Liang plows fields by day and reads at night. His peers noted something unusual about how he studied. While they memorized every line, he extracted only the structural idea and moved on. He was building a model of how power works, not a catalog of what others said. A model. He compared himself openly to Guanzhong and Yue Yi, the legendary chancellor and general of 4 centuries earlier. The educated class around Xiangyang scorned him for it. Who was this farmer? But one man saw him clearly. The scholar Pang Degong gave the young Zhuge Liang a nickname that would last 1,500 years. Wulong, the sleeping dragon, a power coiled and concealed, waiting. Another scholar, Sima Hui, told a wandering warlord, "In this region are 2 hidden geniuses, the sleeping dragon and the young phoenix. Get one, and you can take the empire." That warlord was Liu Bei. Liu Bei rode out to recruit him. Zhuge Liang turned away twice. His companions were furious. A warlord of imperial descent, riding through mud for a farm boy who wouldn't meet him. Then he came a 3rd time. The Sanguozhi records it in one sentence. Liu Bei visited him 3 times and then met with him. 3 personal trips, in winter, for a 27-year-old nobody. At that meeting, Zhuge Liang laid out the Longzhong plan. Cao Cao, too strong to attack. Sun Quan, impossible to displace. Ally with him instead. Take Jing Province, then Yi Province, Sichuan, as a mountain fortress. Build, wait, then strike north on 2 fronts. Liu Bei accepted on the spot. Zhuge Liang was 27. He would never see his farm again. In 208 CE, Cao Cao swept south. Liu Bei's force was shattered and fled east, Zhuge Liang was sent personally to Sun Quan's court with only one mission: convince a ruler with everything to lose to fight beside a man who had just been crushed. He succeeded. Sun Quan committed 30,000 troops. The coalition won at Red Cliffs. The fire attack was Zhou Yu's plan. The alliance was Zhuge Liang's. Red Cliffs stopped Cao Cao's southern expansion permanently. Over the next 15 years, Liu Bei took Jing province, then Yi province, then the strategic Hanzhong commandery. In 221 CE, he declared himself emperor of Shu Han. Zhuge Liang was made chancellor. He was 40 years old. He had turned a plan drawn in a thatched cottage into a functioning kingdom. In 222 CE, Liu Bei ignored Zhuge Liang and launched a revenge war. He was crushed at Yiling and died at Baidicheng in 223 CE. On his deathbed, he told Zhuge Liang, in front of witnesses, that if his son proved incapable to rule, Zhuge Liang should take the throne. Zhuge Liang refused. He swore loyalty to the son and kept it 11 years. This is the first principle. The Longzhong plan spent 10 years creating terrain, the alliance, the geography, the kingdom, before a single northern expedition launched. He never asked how to defeat Cao Cao. He asked how to make Cao Cao's strength irrelevant. Most people start the fight and then look for leverage. He built the leverage first. Shu was the smallest kingdom. The population was roughly 1 million. Wei to the north had 4 times that. Wu to the east had twice. By every measure, Shu should have been absorbed within 5 years of Liu Bei's death. Instead, it lasted 40 years. The reason is not military genius. The reason is administration. As chancellor, Zhuge Liang blended Confucianism and legalism, meritocracy and moral example, strict law and no exceptions. He hired by competence, not family name. He reviewed every decision personally. A Wei general heard how Zhuge Liang spent his days and said to his aides, "How can he last long?" He was right. And afraid. In 228 CE, the first northern expedition opened brilliantly. 3 commanderies surrendered. Then his trusted subordinate Ma Su disobeyed orders at a position called Jiting, abandoned the water source, and was destroyed by the Wei general Zhang He. The entire expedition ended. Zhuge Liang executed Ma Su, then demoted himself 3 ranks as penance for promoting him. Principle 2. Authority that exempts itself from its own rules is just power, and power without consistency rots. He executed his favorite and demoted himself. The Sanguozhi records, even people Zhuge Liang punished did not resent him. The standard, applied without exception, is the credibility. In 225, the southern frontier rebelled. Zhuge Liang marched south. The famous story of capturing rebel leader Meng Huo 7 times appears in sources written a century after the event. Historians question the literal accuracy. What is documented? He left local chieftains in place, incorporated elite southern fighters into a dedicated unit, and the southern flank remained loyal for the rest of Shu's existence. Principle 3. You can spend a generation hunting an enemy, or a season turning him into your defense. The southern chieftains became Shu's shield. Win the heart, the hands follow forever. He solved supply. The Sanguozhi records his wooden ox and flowing horse transport. Most engineers today believe a sophisticated wheeled device for mountain passes. He also improved an existing repeating crossbow design into Shu's standard infantry weapon. He was engineering the answer to the one problem the Longzhong plan hadn't solved: how to feed an army across 1,000 miles of mountains. In 227, before the first northern expedition, he wrote a memorial to the emperor, the Chu Shi Biao, now considered a masterpiece of classical Chinese prose, still studied in Chinese schools. It names officials to trust, those to watch, practices to stop. Near the end, I will give my total effort until my death. He meant it literally. Principle 4. Every northern expedition Zhuge Liang launched failed not in battle, but in supply. He knew this before he started, and he spent 7 years engineering solutions, military farming colonies, improved transport, territory consolidation, so that the 5th campaign could last long enough to matter. The lesson is not that logistics is unsexy. The lesson is that most plans fail before the conflict begins, because the infrastructure was never built. The battle is always the last thing. The system is the first. Between 228 and 234, Zhuge Liang launched 5 expeditions north against Cao Wei. Everyone failed to achieve its strategic objective, not in battle, in supply. The Qin Mountains between Sichuan and the Wei River front were roughly 1,000 miles of the worst supply terrain in China. Wei had 4 times Shu's population. They could wait indefinitely. He could not. The second expedition struck Wei fortress Chenchang, defended by Hao Zhao with only 1,000 men. Zhuge Liang threw siege ladders, battering rams, tunnel crews, and towers at the walls for 20 days. Hao Zhao countered every tactic. The fortress held. Supplies ran out. 1,000 men had held off a force 10 times their size. His own doctrine used against him. During the first expedition, a young Wei officer named Jiang Wei, isolated, suspected by his own side, defected to Shu. Zhuge Liang wrote immediately that Jiang Wei was extraordinarily bright in matters of strategy and gave him progressively larger commands. Jiang Wei would lead Shu's resistance for 30 years after Zhuge Liang's death. He hadn't captured a city. He had found his successor. Spring 234, age 53, health failing. He led over 100,000 men onto the Wuzhang Plains, south bank of the Wei River. Across the river, Sima Yi with more than 200,000. Sima Yi's orders: do not engage. Wait. He understood Zhuge Liang's weakness. Every day across those mountains without food was a day closer to retreat. Zhuge Liang did what Sima Yi was not expecting. He ordered his soldiers to begin farming. The Tuntian military colony system, troops rotating between training and cultivation, planting crops alongside local civilians, with strict orders against taking the civilians' food. His army would grow its own supply. The problem that had ended every previous expedition was being engineered out. He was settling in for years. To force Sima Yi out, Zhuge Liang sent a chest of women's clothing, meaning, dress as a woman if you won't fight. Sima Yi's officers demanded to attack. Sima Yi didn't move. He asked the envoy one thing: how does the chancellor eat? How does he sleep? The envoy answered honestly. Sima Yi knew immediately. Zhuge Liang will not last long. Sima Yi was right. Zhuge Liang had been chief executive of a country and field commander of its army, simultaneously for 11 years, reviewing every case personally, signing every law. The Sanguozhi and the Book of Jin record the same portrait. A man doing the work of an entire government alone. The exhaustion caught him at Wuzhang. He fell critically ill in early autumn. Sometime between September 11th and October 10th of 234, Zhuge Liang died in his command tent on the Wuzhang Plains. He was 54 years old. Before he died, He gave detailed orders. The army was to retreat in orderly columns. His death was to be kept secret until the columns were safely past Sima Yi's position. He named his successor, not a relative, but the administrator Zhang Wan, and after him, Fei Yi. He had nothing personal to leave. He owned only a small plot of mulberry trees and a handful of fields, exactly enough to feed his immediate family. He requested a simple burial on Mount Dingjun in plain clothes, with no precious goods. When Sima Yi heard the rumor that Zhuge Liang was dead, he chased the retreating Shu army. Under Zhuge Liang's prearranged orders, the Shu commanders turned and formed their columns into battle line. Sima Yi halted. He could not tell whether Zhuge Liang was dead or if this was one final trap. He retreated. The phrase that entered the Chinese language is still quoted today. Si zhuge zhu sheng zhongda. A dead zhuge frightened off a living zhongda. Later, when Sima Yi walked through the abandoned Shu camp and inspected the discipline of the retreat, he reportedly said 4 words, recorded by the 4th century historian Sun Sheng. He was a true genius. He didn't take the empire. He had drawn the plan to do it at 27 years old in a mountain cottage, and he died trying to execute it in a tent on the front line, 54 years old. He failed at the thing he set out to do, and the doctrine he ran, the actual operating principles, is doing real work in every competitive system alive today. 1. Build position before you fight. Zhuge Liang spent 10 years farming in Longzhong. The Longzhong plan was 18 years in execution before it had any chance to succeed. Almost everyone around you is on a quarterly horizon. Operating on a decade horizon, in almost any field, is a quiet and structurally unfair advantage. It feels unfair because almost nobody does it. 2. Change the axis, not just the effort. Liu Bei could not beat Cao Cao. So Zhuge Liang refused to let the contest be Liu Bei versus Cao Cao. When you are the smaller actor in any contest, the question is not how to work harder at the same thing. The question is how to make the dimension that favors your opponent stop being the relevant dimension. 3. Hold the line on yourself first. His subordinates followed the rules because they watched Zhuge Liang apply the rules to himself. He executed his favorite disciple. He demoted himself. Authority that exempts itself is just power, and power without consistency rots slowly. 4. Most plans fail before the fight. Every northern expedition ended not in battle defeat, but in supply failure. In any serious competition, the execution gap is almost never the capability. It is the infrastructure that was never built before the execution began. Build the system, then launch. 5. Build your successor while you are still winning. Zhuge Liang identified Jiang Wei during a military campaign in 228. He gave him progressively larger responsibilities for the next 6 years before his death. When Zhuge Liang died at Wuzhang, Shu did not collapse. It continued its resistance under Jiang Wei for 30 more years. A system that dies with its architect was never really a system. It was a performance. He never unified China. He set out at 27 with a plan that would have taken 4 decades to execute, and he ran out of time at 54. He lost every campaign he launched. And when he died in a tent on the front line, having governed a state and commanded its army simultaneously for 11 years, the enemy general with twice his army refused to pursue, because the plan, the doctrine, was bigger than the man, and everyone who had faced it knew it. Sun Tzu wrote the theory. Zhuge Liang ran the experiment. The 5 principles he built his life on are not ancient Chinese history. They are the architecture of every competitive system that has ever outlasted its founding conditions. This video is the surface. The books related to this legend are in the description to go deeper into his actual strategies, his letters, the campaigns his enemies documented. Most people will keep scrolling. A few will go further. Tell me in the comments, which of the 5? Which one is most missing from the way you compete right now? I read every comment. Thanks for watching Doctrine of Power. Keep studying the legends.